Need assistance to walk? Do you use a wheelchair and want to stand more? What if you could stand stronger, feel steadier on your feet? What would this mean for your daily life? Join our dance-based walking program to improve balance, coordination, strength, and stamina. Wednesdays in July and August at 2 p.m. at the iconic Columbia City Theater in partnership with Rainier Avenue Radio and Hugs and Power Nonprofit. Walkers, wheelchairs, and canes welcome. If you can stand and bear weight for even just 5 seconds, come dance to walk with Tango Stride.
Tune in to Real Estate and Money every Tuesday afternoon from 2:30 to 3 here on Rainier Avenue Radio.world. Join your hosts Violetta Strash with John L. Scott Kent North and Tina Lombard with Guaranteed Rate Affinity. They'll help you navigate the waters of our volatile real estate market and offer you some guidance on how to make your hard-earned money work to make your dreams come true. Learn about current trends, get tips on financial matters, and have fun, interactive discussions about your home inside and out. That's Real Estate and Money.
This is your Rainier Avenue Radio.world community update on Seattle City Lights Utility Discount Program application. If you are impacted by COVID-19, otherwise known as the coronavirus, access the utility discount application online at seattle.gov/UDP for utility discount program, or call 206-684-3000. That's seattle.gov/UDP or 206-684-3000.
Hey, Buford, why are you kicking that old CD player?
Because I can't hear the radio.
Can't hear the radio? Let me help you.
Hey, you two, quit beating up that outdated audio equipment. You can't hear the radio on a CD player.
You can.
No, you can't, you adorable simpletons. But you can hear some great radio on the Rainier Avenue Radio app. It's brand new, it's free, and it's available for Android and iPhone. In fact, you can download the Rainier Avenue Radio app right now from the Google Play Store or the iPhone App Store.
I'm going to go get me a smartphone right now.
I'm just going to put a graduation cap on my rotary phone.
You two have very significant personal issues. Get the Rainier Avenue Radio.world app today.
Hey, this is Paul Pearson. I've hosted the R&B show Star Time since the very beginning of Rainier Avenue Radio, and after years of featuring tracks from the 50s through the 80s, Star Time now plays R&B and hip-hop from the 1990s as well. A whole half-century of soul, funk, hip-hop, and more on Star Time, Wednesdays at 2 p.m. on Rainier Avenue Radio.
Ở Washington, hầu hết chúng ta đều đồng ý rằng con đường dẫn đến sự an toàn nhất là khi chúng ta đặt điện thoại ra khỏi tầm tay. Nhưng điều đó không dễ làm, vì vậy hãy lan truyền thông điệp và làm gương. Trước khi bạn lên đường, đặt điện thoại của bạn vào hộp đựng găng tay, gài đặt nó với không làm phiền. Yêu cầu bạn bè và gia đình của bạn cũng làm như vậy. Bởi vì khi tất cả chúng ta đều làm phần việc của mình, sẽ tạo ra con đường an toàn hơn cho tất cả mọi người. Chúng ta hãy cùng nhau đến đó. Một thông điệp từ Ủy ban An toàn Giao thông Washington.
You are listening to Rainier Avenue Radio,
your community radio station.
Welcome to Rainier Avenue Radio. This is Afternoons with Monique, recording live in Seattle, Washington, every Thursday at 1 p.m.
Thank you for tuning in to Rainier Avenue Radio, your community radio station. You're listening to Afternoons with Monique. The host has not yet arrived yet, so listen to some background music and go through rides. Monique today will be interviewing Ballard High School Principal Dr. Coach Williams. And when she's here, we'll start the show.
Good afternoon, Seattle. This is Monique Lee from the Afternoons with Monique, and you are on Rainier Avenue Radio. Today, I have the pleasure of inviting a community leader and educator, Dr. Joseph Williams, PhD, hail from Franklin High School. Previously, he was at Ballard High School, serving as principal. Please welcome to Afternoons with Monique, Dr. Williams.
Super happy to be here. Thank you for having me, Monique.
How are you handling the heat in Seattle this week?
Oh my God, it's really brutal. I actually ended up having a leak in my home, and so they had to turn off the electricity. So I am baking. I'm not even in my studio. I actually have my own podcast and show, and so I'm not even in my studio because the electricity is off. But it's all good.
Oh, okay. Well, we're going to have our producer update Ballard High School principal into Franklin High School principal as your title, because recently you have transitioned from Ballard High School to Franklin High School principal. So thank you. Thank you, Dan.
Absolutely.
Yeah, well, behind the scene, I do want to thank our producer Dan Bells and Tony Benton, who's the radio station manager, for supporting a program like ours. Before we get on our show here, so before we get started on some of the questions that I would like to ask, and I'm sure our audience would like to know about Dr. Williams' experience and his perspective on parents, students, high school age students, and the educators' experience. I would like to know everybody's history and background, what took them where they were to where they are today. Their perspective derive or evolve over time, and we grow and learn and understand the world better as we get older. So the first part, I like to get to know your background and history, Dr. Williams, and then I also have a lot of questions about, as a member of the community, I see a lot of tragedies, a lot of issues that stem from the lack of self-regulation, I call it, of an individual accountability, and it get into the school shooting issues. I'm talking specifically about that. Sure. We're talking about parents' involvement with the students and how much the school is supposed to be responsible for. You are an authority in this subject matter, and I think a lot of time people see, okay, so this Dr. Williams, he's a principal, what can he tell us about anything outside of school? But 18 years old, or the teenage years, is a formative years when students or kids get into adulthood, and it's transition years. So we would like to learn your perspective in terms of how to support them and grow them into better, more responsible citizens.
Absolutely.
So we'll save some of our time, the second part of the show, for that. And the first part, I'd like to get to know your background and a little bit about your education. Where were you from?
Yeah, so first of all, thank you for having me on the show. I consider this an honor and privilege, Monique, to be with you today. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I'm originally from Kansas City, Missouri, the great state of Missouri, the show me state.
Mm-hmm.
I actually have a birthday coming up. I'll be 54 years of age. Hard to believe, but yeah, I'll be 54 years of age on August 8th. And I am the second oldest of 6 children. Very unique story in that regard. My mother had me at 18, and I'm not even her oldest child. So she had my oldest brother at 14. By the time she was 27, she had 6 kids. So
wow.
Statistically speaking, I shouldn't be sitting here talking with you as Dr. Williams, right?
Extraordinary.
Absolutely, right? And so I give 100% credit to my mother, because people ask me, well, how did you end up being Dr. Williams? And I always tell people, when my mom got her life together, then we got our lives together, right? So it took her getting her life together before our lives were able to get together. And so she really did turn her life around, and it allowed us to turn our life around. So it's super important for, you were talking about parent involvement. I had some great principals. I had some great teachers growing up. I'm telling you 100%, even with all of that, we're not having this conversation without my mother, right? So, the family, I really believe in that African proverb that says it takes a village to raise our young people. It takes a village to raise a child. So it's not just one person's responsibility. It's entirely the village to make sure that our students are being successful. So everybody has a part, but I don't want to ever discount the part that family members play in a child's life. And so when I think about my own life, my mom was very strategic because my father was not in my life. She was very strategic in making sure that I had very positive male role models in my life. So it was very, very important to her that I had the right kind of role models. We all have role models. The question is, are they good role models or are they bad role models?
Right.
So in her case, she wanted to make sure that we had really good role models because obviously we weren't seeing that from our own biological father.
Right.
And, one of the male role models that had the greatest impact on my life was actually my youth pastor growing up. He was a African-American male who, grew up on the wrong side of the track, as they say, but he did well. He went to the military. He ended up going to college. He ended up going on to law school, became a lawyer, and he really did some great things with his life. And he had a profound impact on my life. So truthfully, he had such a great impact on my life that I thought I wanted to be a lawyer one day because he actually provided the blueprint for me. And so I was actually a pre-law major in college when I graduated from high school. And I actually had no desire or no intention on becoming a K-12 educator. But there's this old saying that says, if you want to make God smile, tell him your plans because he might have other plans for you.
Right.
So even though I had plans on being an attorney, God obviously had other plans for me. And so I always say that K-12 education I did not choose K-12 education. K-12 education chose me. And so I'm very grateful that it did. And so what happened was my last year of college, I had the opportunity to work as a substitute teacher because I only needed one class to graduate from university. And so spent a lot of time subbing, and I felt like a fish in water. I really had a good rapport with young people. Nobody had to teach me how to manage and run a class because I demanded the respect of the students, and they gave the respect. And also like to coach, and they allowed me to coach basketball. And I was like, man, people get paid for this? I might do this, right?
Right.
So yeah, that's what happened. I said, you know what? I've been accepted into 7 different law schools, but you know what? I'm just going to take a year or two and save some money, and then I'll come back to law school. And Monique, that was 1994, and I guess I'm still in law school deferment. I never made it, right? So 28 years in this amazing, wonderful K-12 profession. And I absolutely know that I was put on this earth to impact the lives of young people in the communities that I serve. So I'm very grateful for that. And that's how I ended up here. And so, I received my bachelor's degree, my master's degree, my doctorate degree. I have an MBA. So yeah, I believe in education, obviously.
So you've been in Seattle how long now?
I'm going into my 4th year in Seattle. My wife is originally from Colombia, South America. So, we have a bicultural family. My children, obviously speak English, but they also speak fluent Spanish. And, we just wanted to be in a very diverse environment, a progressive environment where my, children and my wife were welcomed. And we looked all over the country. And the more we researched Seattle, the more we liked it. One of the reasons why I looked at the Pacific Northwest specifically is because my father had actually relocated to Portland many years ago. And he lived here until he actually passed away. So I'd always been fond about the Pacific Northwest, but it never was the right time for me to move out here. And so, 4 years ago, we just decided, hey, we're going to make it happen, and super grateful that we did that. Feel really welcome and supported in this community, and we're here to stay.
And when did you start at Ballard High School? Did you just get hired from what were you before Seattle?
So I didn't start, I actually came to Seattle in the summer of 2019. So this is pre-pandemic. Mm-hmm. And I'd actually applied to Seattle and several other school districts, but I applied too late being a school administrator because, basically all the positions were already filled for school leadership. But my background is in special education. I was a special education teacher. So if anybody knows anything about K-12 education, you never have to worry about employment if you're a K-12 teacher and special ed. So I actually worked my first year here, which was the year that the pandemic hit in Kent School District. And I worked there until, they made everybody go home in March of that school year. Yeah. And actually in April of that school year, I was hired by Seattle to start at Ballard High School as an AP for the upcoming year. And so I was at Ballard the previous 2 school years. I started out as an AP at Ballard, but this year I was thrust into the position of interim principal at Ballard High School, and I finished out the year as interim principal at Ballard High School. And I was actually named to be the permanent principal or the regular principal at Franklin High School for the upcoming school year.
Well, congratulations, by the way, for the new exciting, but I'm sure will be challenging position at Franklin High. I know a number of friends who went to that school. Our former governor, Gary Locke, who I believe was president at Franklin High for a number of years, and he became the first Chinese American governor of any state in the United States, the very first. It started at Franklin High.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we have some pretty extraordinary movers and shakers here in Washington State that came out of Franklin.
Wow.
One of my old boyfriend was also president Franklin High, Jimmy Wanik Suksambad.
Wow.
He was there a number of years ago. So a few of my other good friends also came out of the school. So it's produced a lot of great minority student leaders and became later on leaders of our state. So I'm sure you have your work cut out for you, but you also will have a lot of opportunities to groom some extraordinary people coming up here.
Yeah, we're super excited about that. I don't know if you're aware, but the superintendent is a graduate of Franklin High School. There are many district leaders that are graduates of Franklin High School. Shout out to Dr. Robert Gary. He's a principal and very influential leader in Seattle Public Schools. He's a graduate of Franklin High School. So a lot of support out there. And we expect nothing but greatness moving forward at Franklin High School.
Yeah, so you're on Rainier Avenue Radio. I'm Monique Lee, your host of the Afternoons with Monique show. This afternoon, we have Dr. Joseph Williams, formerly of Ballard High School and now upcoming Franklin High School principal, joining us on the show. And in the next hour or 45 minutes or so, I will be chatting with Dr. Williams about his perspectives about students, teachers, individuals that grow up and become productive adults in our community, how we can make that happen. We have a lot of issues. Again, I'll repeat the similar thought that is on a lot of parents' mind these days. How can we help our young people in society grow into respectful, productive individuals, and the role of educators, the role of parents and nurturers. So we'll get on with that. But back to Dr. Williams, we understand that you have a podcast about leadership for educators. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so like I said earlier, I feel like the K-12 profession is the greatest profession in the world. Of course, I'm biased, right? So I'll put that out there right off the top. 100%. I'm very biased about that. But in all seriousness, I really feel like the K-12 profession is the profession that makes all other professions possible. So I don't care what profession you're in. I'm sure if you talk to anybody, there was someone at the elementary, the middle, or the high school level, some teacher, some administrator, some counselor that had a profound impact on their life, on their upbringing, on their nurturing.
Testified.
100%, Monique, right? Right?
Yes,
So
absolutely.
that's really true. And so for me, I just feel like, we don't get the credit and the appreciation that we deserve.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know if you've ever heard of James Altucher, but he actually wrote a book called Choose Yourself. And I chose myself. I said, you know what? In terms of, tooting the horn of K-12 educators across the United States and the world, I choose myself to put that out there and to create a show that celebrates these amazing K-12 teachers, leaders all across the United States and the world. And I'm going to interview them and give them a chance to shine and be celebrated around the world. So we started it up. Honestly, we just started it up last month. Started out with 0 followers, Monique, on LinkedIn. Oh. And now we have over 3,000 subscribers to the show, and it's just growing by leaps and bounds every single week. So super excited about that. Many educators, from superintendents to teachers to teacher assistants to counselors, have been a part of the show and literally have a waiting list of people that want to be on the show. So I'm very grateful for that. And I just know it's going to continue to grow, and it's making an impact. And, I just want K-12 educators to know that they're not in this work alone, that their work is celebrated, their work is appreciated, and they do have someone in me that's going to toot their horn for them on this show.
Right. Now, I know that at Ballard High School at Ballard High School, you facilitated or co-facilitated something called the Ballard High School Diversity Empowerment Council, and you have some work on equity, racial equity, and a multicultural club for students of color. And you have some experience in community strengthening and the work with students and staff relationship. Can you tell us some of that before our middle of the break? In about 6 minutes here, we'll have a half show break. And I'm always saving the best for last. The exciting part is coming up on the second part of the show, where Dr. Williams and I will discuss some of the social maladies and social problems that may have stemmed from childhood through high school age and transition into adulthood, how we can help people have better lives, better mental health coming up. But back to the show at hand here, can you talk to me about the Diversity Empowerment Council work and the diversity work at Ballard High School?
Yeah, so obviously I'm a champion for diversity. I'm a person of color. I'm African American. So obviously, as it relates to making sure that students of color, parents of colors feel welcomed and included in a safe setting, that's obviously near and dear to my heart. But yeah, the Diversity Empowerment Council was an organization, a group that was already in place when I came to Ballard High School. And I obviously became a part of that and just really helped to try to strengthen that group. So I definitely want to give a shout out to Ms. Robin Dowdy, who co-facilitated that group with me the last couple of years. And it's been really great. And so obviously, we definitely want to bring that kind of group to Franklin High School. So we were doing some really good things at Ballard as it relates to diversity work and also strengthening, relationships between students and staff. And we work with the One Love Foundation for that. We also had a student advisory group that we work with to, really be a vehicle for our students to feel like their concerns, their voice was being heard, and whatever concerns that they might have had, whether it was dealing with race and equity issues dealing with sexual assault, any issue that they wanted to talk about, we were willing to discuss, because again, at the end of the day, we are stewards of the school building. It's ultimately their school, and we want to make sure that they have a great experience. So whether we're talking about students of color, whether we're talking about our students that belong to our LGBTQ community, whether we're talking about female students, whatever group a student felt a part of, we wanted them to feel welcome and included. And so that is what we did. And so again, as it relates specifically to the Diversity Empowerment Council, we met every month. We talked about issues and concerns that our parents brought to our attention, as well as our students. And it was definitely a way for parents to feel like parents of color to feel like their voice was being heard, as well as students of color. And we brought those concerns to obviously the greater admin team and our staff about these concerns. So it was really helpful. And obviously that group is going to continue. And definitely, I'm sure they have something very similar. It might not be the same name at Franklin High School, but we definitely want to continue that important work, because every student, every parent of a student at Franklin High School should be welcome, should feel welcome, and should feel like they're included.
Now, high school, Franklin High School is positioned right on Rainier Avenue intersection with 23rd still, right?
Yes.
And it's right by actually Rainier Avenue Radio headquarters, right on Rainier there. The population in the past, so there was busing, and there's a commingling of different neighborhoods to the school to provide that diversity that is needed at every school, not just Black students or local Black students around the area. In the last 10 years or so, Amazon, Microsoft, all these tech companies have gentrified that neighborhood quite a bit. Columbia City is no longer just a majority Black. I believe there's a lot of different ethnicities that moved into the neighborhood.
Very diverse.
It's very diverse at this point. Are we still doing the busing to Franklin, or are we also only have people that live within certain 2, 3, or 5 mile radius students attend Franklin High at this point?
Yeah, Franklin is a neighborhood school. I mean, it's not, no one is forced to come to Franklin or bus from, other neighborhoods.
Different parts.
No, that's not happening anymore. I'm sure it was in the past, but not now.
Okay, that's good. That's great to learn, because 25 years ago, my old boyfriend was bused from Magnolia all the way to Franklin for 3-4 years. So the diversity was sort of forced, because there was not enough diversity at Franklin. But now it's good to know that we have a diverse student that doesn't have to cross the city, because as we know, traffic is already horrendous without all the buses crossing all over to try to bus everybody, all the students, to different schools, right?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's not happening.
Yeah. So the next part of the show, everybody stay tuned for this, because Dr. Williams and I will talk about the role of parents and educators, how we can best work together to build a better adult for our society. Please come back at 2:30 to join us at Rainier Avenue Radio with Dr. Joseph Williams from Franklin High School coming up in the next 3 minutes.
I'm Paul Pearson, host of Star Time, and when I'm not deep frying a turducken in a closed garage, I'm listening to Rainier Avenue Radio.world.
Điều kỳ diệu nào đó sẽ xảy ra khi bạn thắt dây an toàn. Đó là điều kỳ diệu khi chúng ta đặt điện thoại của mình ngoài tầm với, hoặc cung cấp thêm chỗ cho ai đó trên xe đạp của họ. Một hành động nhỏ dừng lại để ai đó băng qua đường. Đó là một vẻ đẹp. Ngay cả việc bắt xe về nhà sau khi uống rượu cũng rất anh hùng. bởi vì tất cả những điều nhỏ nhặt đó đóng vai trò to lớn cho việc giữ an toàn cho chúng ta. Cùng nhau, chúng ta đến đó.
Rainier Avenue Radio presents All Music All Day Saturday. Music All Day Saturday. This is Edwin Bailey, Bulldog Blue. Jazz from the Cabinets.
That's right. It's time once again for Jazz from the Cabinets with Big Poppy.
Start Time.
Thanks for tuning in. My name is Paul Pierce. This is Start Time.
Saturdays, all music, all day. Reggae Hour, K-Fox Night.
You looking for the perfect beat? Yeah, it's the beat of the Fox.
Fresh Juice, D-Money in the group.
Myself, D-Money.
Nice Size Patron.
Taylor
This is Spencia, the Northwest Rap Game.
DJ Medina. Chad Cheddar. Northwest Rap Game.
Sergio LaCour's Love Line.
It's Sergio's Love Lines with Sergio LaCour. Going to the phone line. Tell her who we just
Sea Monster Radio, Mo Jams. It's your jam.
We're live. Welcome to Mo Jam Mondays. This is KZ of KZ Music Media. Caller Goddess for Mo Jam Mondays.
Just my opinion. God is inspiration all day and all night. Saturdays on Rainier Avenue Radio.org.
Women Empowerment Talk Radio, your roadmap to business success. Tune in every Sunday at 3 p.m. on Rainier Avenue Radio.world, providing resources and sharing motivational experiences from the everyday entrepreneur. Tune in Women Empowerment Talk Radio every Sunday, 3 p.m. on Rainier Avenue Radio.org.
Grab my glasses.
You probably have questions about COVID vaccines. Here are some answers about how they're being made.
How are COVID vaccines being produced faster?
Usually, vaccine testing and production are separate steps. But because of the pandemic, vaccines are being developed on parallel tracks. So both steps are happening just at the same time.
How are the vaccines being tested?
Right now, several different COVID vaccines are in testing. Each go through multiple clinical trials with up to thousands of volunteers.
How do vaccines get approved?
Not all COVID vaccine versions will make it to the final stages of testing and approval. Produced vaccines that do not pass clinical trials will be destroyed. But for those that do pass, a team of medical experts will examine test results and possible side effects. If the vaccine is effective and safe, it gets approved and gets to you. Go to covidvaccinewa.org to learn more. A message from the state of Washington.
Listening to Rainier Avenue Radio.
Welcome to Rainier Avenue Radio. This is Afternoons with Monique, recording live in Seattle, Washington, every Thursday at 1 p.m.
Welcome back, Seattle. This is Monique Lee from the Afternoons with Monique show. I have today on Rainier Avenue Radio an educator and a leader of our community, Dr. Joseph Williams, who came from Ballard and now recently transitioned to Franklin High School coming up. He's the principal there next year, 2022-2023. Please welcome back to Rainier Avenue Radio, Dr. Joseph Williams.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, so I have this thing that is on my mind all the time about how people behave here in America, and a lot of the stuff that's been happening in the news. School shootings seem to be everywhere coming, at first it was just an occasional thing, but the more I live here in America, the more prevalent, the more the frequency has increased. And I don't know if it's the lack of parental involvement, or there are other things which I will hope to talk with you about today, because I think your perspective is kind of important for me to learn. You've been in special education for a long time before you became AP assistant principal and now principal. So, you're around students a lot, and perhaps your perspective will allow us to understand how people become this way. So, every day, every few days, when I look at the news, today we have someone from the ferry rammed their ferry into a bank and damaged a bunch of ferry dogs. And a couple days ago, there was cutting line on the ferry, road rage. Somebody took out a gun and threatened somebody or shot someone, and then every few days you see news about children shooting at some school in other states. Maybe someone threatened people here. Just people seem to be more aggressive and less patient and not as courteous toward each other the longer I live here. And is it my perception? Are we getting angrier and easily triggered than we used to be?
Oh, wow, that's a loaded question. I think that obviously the pandemic, these last 2.5 years, has had a negative impact, not only on our students, but also on adults as well. So I think that has something to do with it. But I also think that the pandemic, separate and apart from the issues related to health, also brought mental health to the forefront as well. Mm-hmm. And the fact that, we have to make sure that we're taking care of ourselves. Self-care is super important to be a functioning member of society. So I think that's super important. But no, I don't think there's anything unique about some of the incidents that you referenced. Yes, there might be a tick up in it because of the pandemic, but I think that the more we get to quote unquote normal, whatever that means, I think that, people will just, they'll be more realistic about, how they respond to certain situations that they find themselves in. It's not so much whether or not they find themselves in these situations, it's how they respond to those situations, right? So, that's just something that, I think will just kind of work its way out of our system as a society as we get further and further away from just being isolated and quarantined in our homes for so many months. So I think that will help.
I wonder about that because when I look at the chart about the frequency of the school shootings, it has increased even before the pandemic. It had increased in frequency and in different states. Incidents of senseless killing, not just of a school student shooting, but also people ramming cars into crowd. People just seem very aggressive and, even in downtown Seattle with the homeless and all the looting of department stores, people just seem more blatant and disregard the law. They flaunt the laws a lot more now. And maybe I just haven't lived here enough to see all of these incidents. And I've been here 31 years, but when I see these things happening more and more around me, I just can't help but wonder, where did this originated from?
To me, that's fair. But also, you say you've been here 31 years. Seattle was a different place from a communication standpoint 31 years ago. And I didn't even live here 31 years ago. But and I know that there was no Facebook, there was no 24-hour news network, and if it was in its infancy. So we're on a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week news cycle, right? Yeah. And so a lot of the things that might have happened if we're living in Seattle, that might have happened in the other Washington, unless it was of a national event, we wouldn't have even known about it, right? So a lot of the things that we feel like, oh, this wasn't happening. Yeah, it was happening. But you just didn't hear about it because that wasn't your local community. And a lot of that news would only get sent out to the local community. Now, it's very easy for us to hear about what happened in any other city in America because we are, like you said, on this 24-hour news loop, right? Yeah. And so, again, I'm not saying, to your point, because I'm sure the statistics will probably bear this out, I'm not saying that it's not happening more, but I do say that because of the way we receive our information, that these things, we're going to overindulge ourselves with all these things that are going on when we wouldn't have even had that opportunity 30 years ago.
yeah, I read a lot about this, and there is a point to what you're saying. I just wonder how much of it is the news being accessible to the average person so much more today comparing to past, and information and communication is traveling at viral speed. So there is a point to that.
Sure.
I just wonder of how much of that also came from just a faster lifestyle, with
Sure.
faster communication. People are rushing, going from point A to point B. They are less patient toward their fellow human beings around them. So maybe we used to be, I think, I don't know. I have this impression that people used to be more polite in Seattle, where, when I first came here, they much more seemed to be kinder. Seattle was known to being very courteous, like overly so. We kind of lost that reputation over time. We're still being considered pretty nice, but not as nice as we used to be. And,
Okay.
the life pace here had become a lot faster than I remember it used to be.
No, that's fair. Of course, I've only been here 4 years, but I don't really feel like anything that's happening in Seattle is unique. I mean, I'm sure if you went to any major city in the world, let alone the United States, I was just in Europe. I was in London. I saw some of the same behavior in London just 2
No,
weeks
it's across
ago.
the globe. It's
Yeah.
transmitted on the air. I mean, Facebook and Twitter, all of that bad behaviors are being copied across the globe at a viral speed.
100%, 100%. So yeah, I just think that you are right in the sense that because things happen so quickly, and because people are literally glued to this cell phone,
Yeah.
that it does make people, in my opinion, even if they're not naturally that way, I think it makes us more introverted and into whatever we have going on, as opposed to being more aware of our surroundings. So yeah, I think that is an issue, but to me, that's a worldwide global issue that is 100% related to this thing I'm holding in my hand, right?
Right. Well, technology has its perks, and it's also detractors.
Absolutely.
So I'd like to also ask you about this, which I mentioned earlier.
Okay.
The role. So where I came from, I grew up in Asia, and my experience is actually similar to many of my friends across Asia, not just Vietnam, but people who grew up in Asia, China, or Japan. We have kind of a similar experience where our parents are responsible for growing us and disciplining us and educating us, and we go to school, we learn academics, plus we I actually remember that there was a class called character. And
wow.
it has to do with what is considered right and wrong behavior. I don't think it's quite a moral class, but it's talk about personal character, and you being graded for what you understand to be good character. So if you ace all your academic classes, but you get like a B or a C in behaviors, because it has to do with how often you're tardy, how often you're absent. It has to do with how many incidents of problems that you cause your fellow students and teachers, how much shenanigans a kid get into. So they being graded for that, for behaviors as well as academic. I remember now. So there is some expectations there, but the parents don't typically hold the teachers and the school responsible for the misbehaviors of their children. They tend to take that personal ownership of raising the kid, and they take the kids home and discipline them, spank them, or whatever, yell at them, and there is some doing there. Here I see a lot of parents coming to the school and blame the school for not teaching the kids how to behave, it seems like, and I find that to be rather unusual. Can you elaborate on what you observed? Because what I saw is very anecdotal. But what you see is a collective, because you're in the field, you not only know of your own experience, but other principals, other teachers' experience. Can you share with us your experience and your thoughts on the parental responsibilities and the educators' responsibilities when it comes to raising and disciplining of minors?
Yeah, those are great points that you brought up about your own upbringing. I'm 54 years of age, or I soon will be. And so my experience is not all that different from yours. Like 100%, my mom held me and my brothers and sisters accountable. And if we didn't do what we were needing to do in school or in the community or in public, she would handle it. Point blank, period, end of discussion, right? And so the one thing that I will say is that education begins at home, right? So even if you're an elementary teacher or administrator, long before that child enters your school as a kindergartner or even a pre-K student, for 4 or 5 years, they already had a teacher, and that was mom and dad, or grandma and grandpa, whoever's raising that child. And so that the education, it's not like young people, first of all, they're born into this world as a blank slate, right? So I've always said all behavior is learned behavior, right? And so when a child comes in as a 4 or 5 year old, they've already been taught so many different things over the first 4 or 5 years of their life before they ever step foot in a school, right? And so it's up to us when we get them. And I can say this because I've been a principal at the elementary level. I've been a principal at the middle school level. I've been a principal at the high school level. So I've seen it at every level. And you're going to have some students that come in and they just haven't gotten that training. So the question is, do we as, administrators or teachers just throw up our hands? Oh, okay, well, Johnny or Jamal or Susie, or Shelly didn't get it and we're just going to give up on them? Or do we try to fill in those gaps, those learning gaps that they might not have, received at home and try to help them, right? So, our philosophy is no excuses. Every child, every day, no excuses. Every child, every day, no excuses. So we're not going to let a child say, because I didn't get what I needed to get at home, that I'm not going to be successful. We're still going to make sure that you're successful, right? And this word that we use specifically in special ed is called scaffolding, meaning you are teaching a child what they need to learn at their current grade level, whatever that might be, kindergarten, 5th, 7th, 9th, it doesn't matter. But at the same time, while you're teaching them what they need to know at their current grade level, you're filling in those learning gaps, you're scaffolding so that they can get what they need to get or what they didn't get in some of those earlier years. So again, like I said, we deal with those kind of students, and students come as they are to our schools, right? So you're going to have some students that are above grade level, some students that are on grade level, some students that are below grade level. You're going to have some students that absolutely know how to act appropriately in a school, and you're going to have some kids that don't know how to act appropriately in the school, and they need to be taught, right? And there needs to be more intensive support for those students, and we provide those supports, right? So again, we have to create an environment. As a school leader, it is my job to create an environment where there are no excuses. So when we're talking about the student, to your point, that had the support at home, that had the necessary home training to be successful from day one when they walk into the school, or whether we have students that don't have that, we treat all kids the same, and we have the same level of expectation for all the students, right?
I see. Do you think that we should have a character or moral class in school to teach people the right and wrong, how to conduct themselves, how to treat their fellow human beings decently? In the past, I believe that America did have that. I don't know what it was called, but I knew someone talked about this. Do you know anything about that?
Yeah, I'm a big believer in teaching across the curriculum. And what I mean by that is you can teach, I can be a math teacher and still teach those morals and values that you're talking about. I can be a science teacher and still teach those morals and values. I can still embed that in my curriculum and use specific examples that talks about the necessary good character traits that we want our children to have in the specific curriculum that I'm teaching, the subject matter that I'm teaching. So do we even have the time in a typical school day to teach a specific class like that? Probably not. But again, like I said, those kind of things can be embedded in a classroom lesson, in a curriculum, no matter what the teacher is teaching, no matter what grade level they're teaching, and they can still get those necessary values that they need.
I see. I actually understand what you mean. Teach by example is what you are referring to. Applicable example of everyday incidents and how to resolve them respectfully, things like that.
Yeah, conflict resolution, kindness, respect for your fellow students, respect for your, the adults in the building. All of those things can be taught and embedded in classroom lessons and lesson plans when teachers are planning their lessons, in the curriculum that a specific school district might be following. All these things can be embedded.
I see what you're saying. I still see that as a challenge because let's say a math teacher who is expected to teach, certain lessons and, whatever geography or, sine, cosine, tangent algorithm, and, some student misbehave and they have to take some time out of their curriculum to, talk to the child, disciplining or address the behaviors, that could take away from the other students, So I see what you're saying.
That's fair, Monique, but also, it's every teacher's responsibility and the school leadership of that building to ensure that students know what the expectation is, not only in the school, but in the classroom, right? So if Monique is my student and she comes into my classroom and I have not clearly outlined what the expectation is behavior-wise, classroom lessons, as far as turning in assignments, as far as, assessments in the class, if I haven't laid out those expectations, how can I hold that child accountable, right? So again, those kind of things have to be reinforced, particularly at the beginning of a school year, so that students know what the expectation is in that classroom, right? And again, there's ways, we can go into the weeds on this, but I'm just saying there's ways that teachers can do that from day one and keep reinforcing what their expectations in the class are week 1, week 2, week 3, so that by the time they do hit the 9-week mark or the semester mark, there's a clear expectation of what and how things should go in a classroom.
I understand. One of the other things that I just had a thought when you were speaking was how much accountability should parents be held to when students are not behaving? Do you have a conversation with them when their children misbehaves and if they repeatedly offend or did something wrong against their fellow humans, like getting to fight and hitting other kids or talking disrespectfully to teachers or other administrators around the school, and the parents are not taking any action? What do you do at that point?
So again, like I said earlier in our conversation, it really does take a village to raise our children. So there's two things that I'll point out as it relates to that. First of all, it's super important that at the beginning of every school year, teachers, administrators, what have you, that their first contact with a parent is a positive parent contact, right? Because at the end of the day, Johnny, Jamal, Susie, Sally, whatever that child's name is somebody's child. And no one wants to hear anything negative about their own child, right? So it's super important, number one, for that first contact to be a positive parent contact. But also, even if I have to call Monique and her child is acting out in the class, in the school, had a fight, whatever, I always believe in what I call the glow and grow communication, right? So I'm going to call Monique and I'm going to say, let's say your daughter's name is Sally, right? Hey, Monique, I just wanted to tell you that Sally, she's an amazing student. She loves math. She does a great job in math every single day. But I do want to let you know that in math class today, she had some sort of disagreement with one of her friends. And instead of just kind of talking it out, she hit her. Okay, which is not okay. And I'm sure you feel the same way. So all I'm asking you to do is, can you have a conversation with her about that? If she finds herself in that situation again, that she thinks about the proper way to handle that or get the teacher involved, right? So you see how I modeled that? Like, look, your child's a great student. She does a great job from an academic standpoint, but from a social emotional standpoint, sometimes she lets her feelings get in the way of how she's doing academically in the class. And we need your help.
Yeah, sure.
Right?
So,
yeah.
What do you say about when people say that Americans are getting dumber because we're not learning the skills and the science that we need to compete in the world, global contest of intelligent adults? Do you agree with that?
I find it laughable. Okay. You're talking to somebody that's been in 15 different countries around this world. My wife lives and is from another continent in South America, and I've been all over this world. What I will tell you is this: our children do not lack ability or capacity. Our children only lack our willingness as adults to teach them what they need to know, right? That's the first thing. The second thing I will tell you, in comparison to every other country in this world, the United States is one of the few countries in this world that educates everyone, right? You can go to plenty of countries in this world and everybody's not getting a free and public education, right? So when you start comparing, what I challenge everybody that says that to is compare our top students with the top students in the countries around this world. And we are right there at the top with everybody else, right? Now, does that mean that we neglect the students? Because again, like I said, we educate everyone. And everyone in the United States has a right to a free and appropriate public education, right?
Right.
So yes, do we need to do better with students that need that additional support? Absolutely. Is there an inequity issue with how some of our students in more affluent communities access education than our students in poor communities? Absolutely, right? But it's laughable, absolutely laughable when people say that we are not where other countries are, because you go to other countries, you got some countries where they make a decision whether or not a child goes the university track or the vocational track before they even hit middle school.
I see.
So those students that go the university track are the only ones that are truly tested versus the rest of the world, is what I'm saying.
It's wonderful to hear your perspective because, I, as a non, educator, I'm a parent and I read some stuff and there's a lot of conflicting messages out there.
Sure.
So it's good to hear from an authority figure regarding this. And I didn't even get a chance to get into the mental health aspect of high schoolers yet. So you might have to come back and share with us how we're going to work with, our students on the mental health issues coming down, maybe down the road a couple in the next few months. You have to come back and talk to us more and let us know what your thoughts are on that. So I appreciate you coming on Afternoons with Monique and Rainier Avenue Radio to share your thoughts and perspective, Dr. Williams.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
It's my pleasure. And next week we will have Congressman Jim McDermott, 80-something years old, have been serving in the political office for 45 plus years. He's a senior politician. He will come and talk to us and share with us his perspectives on how we as citizens can help have better government. So please come and join Rainier Avenue Radio Afternoons with Monique next Thursday at 2 p.m.